can damage the bees in that you're blowing down because it's high pressured air and wrecks their wings and stuff like that. Advantages, you only got to make one trip to the hive to take your honey off. Another thing that you can do that I'll show you over there is pretty simple. If you've only got a little bit of honey to take off, you pretty much just pull one frame at a time out of that box, shake the bees off or brush them off with a bee brush that I've got, and just put those frames into a empty box like that. You don't want to be doing that if you've got heaps of honey to take off, because it obviously takes heaps of time. And when you're doing that, because it's slow and you've got other hives around, the other bees will start coming in and robbing that honey off and that, and you can make a bit of a mess doing it that way. So when we go over there, I'll smoke those hives out. We'll probably, I don't know, we'll probably take three heavy boxes of honey off, put 2 of these on 2 hives, and then I'll show you just the shake method. I don't have a blower in that. With the blowers, you kind of need either a generator on the back of your truck or an inverter in your truck to run those, because you run the quite high powered, like 230 volt high touchy ones.
Well, good to really just here, bro.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we don't need to.
Yeah.
Going back to it again.
Yeah. This is the most simple way, or shaking it out. So when we go over there, we'll have a look at the hives. I've got a couple of spare hive tools. Obviously, the gloves will be here next week. If you guys want to have a look in those hives and that, you're more than welcome to. Just go slow and beware that you might get the odd sting on your hand. So yeah, we'll go over there. First thing, I'll run through how this works, and I'll do a full brood check down the bottom, make sure there's no disease. With that disease, American foul brood, like I said, we'll go more in depth and touch on that. But in New Zealand, if you find a hive that's got foul brood, you got to burn the whole hive. So you got to destroy it, you got to block it up, pour petrol through it so all the bees die.
Does that disease come from a mite, or does it come off the flower that the bees catch it?
It interchanges, so it passes between hives, and it's like a bacterium spore, and it just multiplies within the hive. Overseas, like in America and that, they feed their bees antibiotics. It doesn't get rid of it, but it keeps the hive alive. In New Zealand, that's illegal to do that. We don't feed our bees any antibiotics because we don't want that crap in our honey. We want pure. So basically, if you find a hive like that, you want to destroy it.
Is it much around?
Yep, can be. Obviously, at the moment, because in the last few years, the honey prices have kind of crashed. There's a lot of abandoned hives, so people aren't checking their hives for it. If a hive dies from it, and then the other bees from other hives will come in there once it's weak, and they'll start robbing that honey out of there. That's how it kind of spreads. It also spreads, mainly the biggest cause is beekeepers. So when you're splitting a hive, or making 2 hives, or swapping food between hives or brood between hives, which we'll do a bit of, if you don't pick up on it and you move a frame and that hive's got AFB, you'll 100% give it to the next hive. So that's mainly how it spreads.
So it's like Cody dieback for bees, eh?
Pretty much, yeah, and it will kill your hive eventually. So it's important that we're always checking for that. And by law, you do have to check for that whenever you're doing anything with. I mean, every time you're looking in a hive, you're looking for signs of it. But before you do things like shift hives or split a hive into 2 colonies, or take honey off, you just want to be certain that it doesn't have anything like that. The biggest thing with taking the honey off, the little bacterium spores actually stay in the honey. They don't affect us. It's still all right for us to eat the honey. But if other bees come along and eat that honey and get one of those bacteria spores, take it back to the hive, well, then it'll multiply in that hive. So it's just important to check for it.
So you got to have some backup bloody hives then. So if you get that,
yeah,
can you take the bees out of that hive, put them in another hive, or
no, you got to destroy it.
They're all got to die.
Yeah, they used to kind of do that because it only. So the bees carry that bacterium spore, and it doesn't multiply in the bees. It only multiplies in the larvae's gut. So when they feed the larvae that honey or whatever, they give the larvae that spore, and it just multiplies. It kills the larvae, but then the other worker bees go along and they pull out that dead larvae. When they're pulling that out like that, it just ends up gradually spreading through the whole hive. So it's important we check for that. So yeah, that's what we'll do today. Then
is it a certain colour, or
Yep, so the brood turns like a it's, you know those little larvae, how they're white?
Yep.
They actually turn like a coffee coloured, and it's like a real ropey, like a booger, gooey, it goes gooey. So there's certain things you got to check for. Also, if a hive's got it, when you get those capped brood cells like I showed you, they can become like quite dark and sunken. And basically what you do, the best way to check is you check those with like a bit of wood or a toothpick, and you take that cell capping back, and if it's brown and gooey in there and it ropes out, it's pretty much, that's your signs that it's AFB. So we'll have a look through, but that's something we'll go more into depth with, and I think we'll do it's called an AFB recognition. You get a certificate, like a day course on that, which we'll do. But
So there's no real picture to it either.
no
Sounds like
fix
once
to
you
it.
got it, that's it.
Yeah, once you've got it, but by burning the hive, you don't spread it. So I've had sites where you've got 20 hives, and for some reason one hive has AFB. If you get onto it fast enough and you burn that hive, get rid of any hive gear or whatnot that belongs to that, it's not necessarily going to show up in your other hives.
Is it working in the heat, or does it work hard out more in the summer, or does it go
It's just
a bit more dormant in
yeah,
the winter? Or
no,
what?
it's just
all
yeah,
year round.
all year round. If it's in there, it'll kill your hive. It's but like I said, if you miss it and you've got a dead hive there and it dies out and there's still that honey and food in that hive, all your other bees come in there, rob it out. That's how it spreads. Or if you're moving gear from that infected hive,
That's pretty bad shit.
yeah. The other thing too is if you find a hive like that and you can spread it on those spores on your gloves and that. So you want to wash your gloves if you find a hive like that. It's good practice if you're going from one site to another, to always clean your gear. Your hive tool, you can spread it on your hive tool. So if you open a hive and you find it, what you need to do is scorch your hive tool with a burner just to get off all that honey residue and wax.
Spirits kills most of any bacteria.
It won't kill AFB. So AFB is a real hard sport. Yep, no, it won't kill it, man. So the only way to kill it is basically through temperature. So over 160 degrees for 10 minutes will kill the spores.
So what do you clean your gloves in then?
So the point of cleaning your gloves basically,
what if you got it on your glove?
Yeah.
And you say nothing can really kill it, so
yep, it's mainly if you get it on your gloves, it's more so the spores and that are in the wax and the honey. So if you clean that off your gloves, the chances of spreading it to another hive are pretty slim. Your hive tool, because it's steel, you can just burn it off and clean it off real well. We'll go into depth on that because it is real important. But for today, before we take the honey off, I'll just show you a quick brood check of looking through before we take the honey off. Okay? Well, before we put these on anyway. Tomorrow when I come back out, obviously because these are going to be on, we'll whip the honey off, and then we need to put those Varroa strips in because they're due to have those. So we'll do that tomorrow, and also might split one of those hives. But yeah, we'll only be up there for an hour and a half tops today. And you guys can have a play around in those hives if you're happy to do that without gloves. All good? I'm going to take my truck up there because I've got this shit in there, so I'll meet you guys up there.
I'm taking my truck too.
You see, this time of the year, if you're taking honey off, you've got to give them a feed before winter and feed them throughout winter. So 2 different types of feeders here. This one here is called a top feeder. It sits on top of the box. I mean, you can sit it on top of your honey box or on top of your brood box. Bees come up through these holes here, through the corners and up here. And these little things in here, these are just anti-drowning things, so it stops the bees drowning in the sugar syrup. This one here, that's called a top feeder. This one here is called an internal feeder. So that it just sits in next to the frames. Now, with these ones, they've got these little grooves in here in the plastic so the bees can crawl down. But with using these, what you want to do is, you know, just I don't know what the mouldy name for it is, but you know that fern that you see on the side of the road, bracken fern.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Another one.
just shove heaps of bracken fern in here, and then pour your sugar syrup on top. It just means that the bees can crawl down the fern, get to the sugar syrup and get out. If you just fill these with sugar syrup, you end up with a whole lot of dead bees in the sugar syrup. And the more dead bees you get in there, it actually starts making the sugar syrup ferment and go off. So the reason we're going to put some of those in some of these next week or the following week and do some feeding. The reason I brought these out today is just I put them down, I'll show you, and then I put the skateboard on top of this. It just means the bees have got a lot of room to come down into out of that honey box. Obviously before I do that, if I'm putting the escape on, I just want to pop these little plastic guards off, and that means that basically the bees can crawl down into here and then crawl back down into that brood box. So I'll leave that there for now, and I'll have a look in this hive and see what our honey situation's like in here. That smoker handy. Frames before I... Okay, so if you look at this here, that's pretty much a full capped frame, right? There's a few cells there that they haven't capped over, but that's good. That's going to be a good box to take, right? If you're pulling these frames out and only, you know, half the frame's capped and you still got a whole lot of empty cells,
Yeah.
you don't really want to be taking that honey off, because like I said, that honey, they haven't fully pulled all the moisture out. Remember I was saying how they convert that nectar to the honey? If it's not capped, it can still be quite watery. When you spin that honey off, it looks all good, but because it's got high moisture content, it'll actually start to ferment. So it'll start to bubble away and you get off honey, okay? It's got too much moisture in there and it starts pretty much turning into honey mead, okay?
Yeah.
So you want, when you're taking a box of honey off, you want to make sure that the majority of it is capped, okay? Otherwise you'll just have honey that just, it foams and it gets like a bitter, it's yuck.
So
it's
the
not
other
good.
way around, that's how you make honey, right?
Pretty much honey mead is just honey and water with an added brewer's yeast.
Yeah.
And then you just let it ferment away for a couple of weeks.
Are those dead bees in there?
Over where?
That are just not even moving? Or
No, they're just obviously,
working.
yeah,
Oh shit.
they're probably filling up the rest of these cells, or they're eating a bit of that honey. Okay, so for now, I'll just I'll crack this off and do a bit of a brood check. If you guys want, have a bit of a, you won't get stung, have a feel of how much weight's in that box. They're pretty heavy.
Holy fucking hell, that's...
Yeah.
And it was stuck.
So that's probably weighs about 30 kilos, that. There's probably a good 20 kilo of honey in there or more.
Oh, yeah, that's fucking heavy, alright?
Good way, too.
That's a full box.
That's everything.
Here, make it. Coat my coat.
The bear got stuck.
What, kid?
Fucking heavy, bro.
Pretty heavy, eh?
Nice.
So
Yeah, I
I'm just
believe
going
you,
to
fella.
put this over here for now. That's sealed off. What I can do is I'll just put this on top of it so that we don't get the other bees robbing it out. When I take this queen excluder off, I've got to be careful because sometimes the queen might be on the underside of it. And if I put that somewhere, she might go out of the hive. So I just have a quick check like that, and then I just whack that off like that. It means if she's on the bottom side, that she's going to end up in there, okay? Yep.
Smoke, smoke.
Obviously, if they've got American foul brood, you'll notice over time that the bee population won't be that big, but that's if it's at advanced stages. You can have a hive that looks perfectly healthy, and it's only in the first stages of American foul brood.
How do you spot it?
I'll show you now. So we'll go through it more, but what you want to do, you can only see it in the brood, okay? So
Oh.
I'll just pull that out. Oh, here we go. On here, because we didn't see last time, that's a drone there, see? See these bigger bees? Yep, that's a drone.
Oh, yeah.
See these bigger ones?
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are your drones, okay?
Oh, yeah.
Doing nothing, eh?
Yep.
Way bigger.
Yeah, they're heaps bigger.
They're black.
Yep.
Black in.
Yep. Okay, so when I'm looking, basically I'm just going to, I know the queen's not on here because I haven't seen her, I'm just going to shake these bees off so that I can have a good look at the brood, okay? Now what I'm looking for in the brood is I'm looking for black sunken cells. I can't see any of that here. See this one here is just on its own. I just scratch that back, it's fine, there's nothing wrong with it. You're also looking for, on this brood that's capped, you're looking for any cells that are chewing. So if it's got American foul brood and that larvae actually dies in the cell, the workers will start chewing that wax capping off to remove that infected larvae. So you're looking for things like that. We'll do a whole day on it in the class and I'll show you pictures of what it looks like, etc. But you want to be checking, because you only can really see visual signs in the brood. You can't see it in the honey because it's a bacteria. You can only see the effects of what that spore does to the larvae. So that frame there is fine. Okay, there's nothing there that's making me think that it's got anything wrong with it. So this one there's no brood on that frame, so I won't check it. This one here. Yeah, so that's honey that hasn't fully been dehydrated yet. It's quite runny, see?
Yeah.
So they haven't capped it. That brood there all looks pretty healthy, okay?
It's a drone.
Good stuff. That's what we're going to
Big
see.
eyes, eh?
Look how much
Big
bigger
eyes,
it is.
big antenna.
What's he up to going for food?
Yeah, bro, he just eats
queen?
some roots.
I'll show you, I'll chuck this off.
Playboy.
Okay, see here,
Food from there.
Yeah.
this is a good example. See this smaller brood here? That's worker brood, okay? See these cap cells here, how they're larger and raised? That's drone brood, okay?
Oh, okay.
So see the difference?
Yeah.
So that's workers about to emerge. These big ones here, and even that there, see how they're a larger cell?
Yeah.
So those are that's what drone brood looks like compared to worker brood.
So really that's all a good sign, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll hit the drones.
See, yep. Okay, so see here, I'm just going to check this cell here. See this one here, how it looks a bit sunken?
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that
one
it's...
now, it's got a hole in it.
Yeah, see that one there? That's not chewing. That's just they haven't finished capping that yet, okay? And over time you'll be able to see the difference. But see this cell here, how it looks a little bit abnormal?
Yeah.
And it's not raised, it's sunken. So I'll just scratch that back off like that. Pull that out, that's fine.
Awesome.
There's nothing wrong with it. But that's the kind of stuff you're looking for, okay?
Yeah.
Which we'll go more in depth into. There's a few other ones here. See these ones here on here? You can actually see those bees are just chewing their way out. They're emerging. Okay. And this one here also coming out.
How many days before they emerge?
21 for the workers, 24 for the drone. Okay, so the drones will be in there longer. But you can see the difference. If you guys want, I'll just pass that around, have a look at the difference between the brood. Okay, so that's drones, obviously they're bigger, and that's your workers.
see the larvae. So the white is the
Trying to
one
get a drink off my hand.
it's supposed to hatching.
Taking your sweat, bro? Yeah, stealing my sweetness. Oh no, look, it's playing with its tongue.
Playing with its tongue.
Oh, it's poking it out,
playing
eh,
with
bro?
its tongue.
Yeah.
What's all that over your hand there? Seeds.
Yeah, must be. Oh, look, it's falling on the ground. You see how long its tongue was there, bro?
Oh no.
Long, eh,
Tongue's
bro?
like a long spike. I was supposed to get in those cells.
Oh, it's quite big too, eh? Yeah. It's like almost as long as its leg.
Quite a thing help with hive, eh?
Yep, plenty of bees. Okay, I'll show you this this frame too. I'll just shake this off. Okay. Okay, so this, once you guys are out of finish looking at that, hold that. I'll just put this one back in. Now, because the weather's warm, if you're checking through hives in the winter time, which you don't do a lot of, you don't want to leave this out of the hive too long, alright, because your brood will get chilled and it'll die. This is fine, because obviously the bees are keeping it warm in there. So I'll just put that one back in for now. Okay, on this frame here, so you've seen on that frame, you can see the worker brood, the drone brood. Now, this little thing here, see that there? That's an old queen cell, alright? Okay, so see how it's even bigger yet again? Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah? So that's what a queen cell looks like. And the important thing to remember is, if you look at a frame like that, see how the worker and the drone brood are coming out of the frame horizontal, alright? Queen cells will always come out and then point down vertically, okay? Okay, so that one there, that's an old hatched one, but queen cells are massive, so they're probably almost an inch long, so that would have come right down to about there, okay?
Oh, I never used
Yep.
the wax,
So
eh?
does that
Yep.
tell us that the queen, another queen is hatched?
Yeah, yeah, that would have been in the spring probably. When queens get old, the hive will sometimes replace it. It's called supersedure, so they'll build a queen cell like that. When the new queen hatches, she'll fight with the old queen and sting her and kill her, okay? So have a look at that. That's what a queen cell looks like. So it's important to remember that it comes out and faces vertically down.
So it's not an abnormal thing, it's a natural
Yep,
thing.
that's
It's a
that's
good
natural.
thing.
Yep.
And they got a cycle, right? So how long does the queen last for in the hive?
Like commercially, just good practice. People replace their queens every year or 2 years, but they will stay. They'll survive 4 or 5 years.
You go by how they look at the bees and going, oh yeah, it's still
Yep.
happening, all good.
Yeah.
And then when you see the bees,
Yep.
oh, the
If you
larvae
see-
not happening.
Yeah,
too much,
it's not happening.
You
You
see
know
the
your
changes,
queen's
right?
getting old. Yep. Correct.
She's running out of
and then
sex.
the bee.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I can see.
So that's real healthy. Look at that. That's heaps of brood.
That's awesome.
It's all healthy. So everything's
Heaps
good.
of larvae,
So I'm
heaps of
pretty happy
bees.
to take the honey off this hive. Honey.
Look at that.
Get off.
Haven't actually seen the queen yet. But like I said, we don't need to see her because we can see that there's plenty of laying and that going on here. Some people spend ages trying to find the queen when really you don't need to, unless you're trying to find her to squash her to replace her or something.
So if she did fall off one of these, would she come back into the
Not
hive?
really, man.
No?
Nah, sometimes, but a lot of the time once they're out of the hive, they won't come back in, especially if you drop her in the long grass in between here or something. She won't find her way back in there. But then, if it's the right time of the year, they'll do their natural process and create another queen. Okay, so that's all good. We've done that brood check. Everything looks all good there. Happy with that to take the honey off that. I'll put that frame back in. Cool.
What's the matter? A real healthy one.
Yep, healthy as. Got a full box of honey on it.
Yeah.
It's got honey down here,
So
so
how long would that take?
oh, that's between it made that box. The thing is, obviously,
You would have had some already in it in the water there, wouldn't
Yeah, there's a couple that were pretty heavy already, eh, bro?
Oh yeah. That would have made that honey up in Kaitai. It hasn't just done that here. But
So
the
how
thing
long-
with that is it's filled that box.
Yeah.
It probably could have done with another box like a month or so ago. Because once they pack that out, they kind of, the more room you give them, so if you put another empty honey box on,
Yep.
they'll keep filling it up. Obviously, if there's no room for them in there, they're not going to be making more honey because they got nowhere to store it, okay?
Good bees.
Okay, so if you chuck me that escape board, you got to remember you want these holes facing up, all right, so the bees go down and out. You could just put that on there like that and then the honey box back on. Maybe we'll do that on, we'll put this on one and that, but I like to put something in between, so I'm trying not to confuse you. Because we're coming into autumn now, they're not going to make another box of honey. There's not, there's a little bit of stuff happening, but not heaps. If that was spring and we were taking honey off, we'd put a fresh honey box on, then we'd put that on top of the fresh honey box, and then our honey box we're taking we'd put on top, okay? But we're in the wintering down process now, so we're not going to put another honey box on there. So I'll put this feeder on, just, it gives them a bit more room to, when they come through here, it gives them a bit of room to go down, all right?
That's a good
Not
idea.
So,
up against it.
You don't have to use it, but it helps to get rid of those
Keep all
bees.
the bees bloody.
Important to remember those holes facing up. If you put it on that way, you're going to come back and tomorrow and your honey box is still going to be full of bees, so it's going to be a waste of time. Okay, so that can go on there like that, facing down, and then this here, it's a good box of honey there. It just goes back on square like that.
Oh, my legs!
Squashed a few, eh? Okay. What I will do, you want to clean that wax off that. When you see, there's even a few bees just flying out right now. So, when you put these on, you want to make sure that it's all sitting flush and there's no gaps. If you've got this slightly off centre and bees can come in and out of here, the other bees from the other hives will start robbing this honey, okay? So you've got to make sure that there's no gaps around it and that your hive mat seals on here properly, okay?
Yeah.
Cool.
Pretty hard.
All good? Just clean up this edge bit. So that there, that's not wax, that's propolis. That's what propolis looks like. So it's more gunky, and you'll see it in these smaller bits here. That's wax, but mainly propolis. Sweet. Hive mat back on. Seal down.
Get to work, mate.
Lid back on.
Hang it around
Okay.
here.
So just depending on what's happening, you want to leave that at least 24 hours. So we'll see tomorrow when we come back. If there's still a few bees in there, we'll just shake them off. Okay. Now, if I was doing the,
Is that broken?
we can even put this
You fellas made a calendar on the Northland seasons?
The box.
for what?
Well,
For the
yeah,
flowering.
on each, like your one box, you know, it takes so long and certain day and a certain time of year.
Yeah, it's hard. It's
Is it like-
it's like anything. It's hard to determine though because it depends on the weather, flowering,
yeah,
stuff like that. Because I mean, if you look at your putakawas and your tea tree and your kanuka,
Yeah.
it's all dependent on the weather, and the temperature. So it can be like a variation of a month each
You've
season
got heaps of
between.
flowers in the time chicken every
Yeah,
week.
sometimes you can have a ton load of honey before Christmas if you get a really good spring and everything flowers and you have good weather. Other times you get a shit spring from September right through to December and the bees haven't done anything by Christmas, you know. So it's just, yeah, all weather dependent and temperature and stuff like that. Sweet. So for that, if I was gonna use the shake technique, what I would do is I'd just have an empty honey box here, and I'd basically pull out one frame at a time, shake the bees off, or I've got a bee brush in there, just brush the bees off like that, put it in the box, which you can do it that way. Okay, that makes sense how that works?
Do you put new frames in as you take the
Yeah,
old
you
ones
could
out?
do, yep, you could do that,
Okay.
yep, correct. Alright, I can take my gloves off and you guys can, if someone wants to have a go at doing that, can go. Who wants to have a go? Who's got gloves?
Oh, look at right in there.
There we go. Who wants my gloves?
Oh, way to go, JR.
Carlos, Marlon. Over Jember. Sweet.
What were you making?
So this is what I didn't show last week as well.
Yeah.
Two different types of hive tool. Some people prefer these, some people prefer these. I just carry both. This one's good because it's got this flat bit at the back for breaking honey boxes off, because you can kind of use that as a to whack your hand to get it in between. I like this one because it's got the hook on end for popping those frames out. But you can also use that for popping your frames out. So just trying to think, maybe either this one or that one there. Have a look in them, see if
This one here, yeah, this one looks busy. This one here looks really busy.
Yep. Down at the entrance.
Go hard. Go hard.
It's annoying the shit out of it.
Is it those ants on there? On the other side, Take 'em off. Troy. There's an ant.
Get those beads. You can tap it on the wood.
Sweet, so you can clean that wax off before you start if you want. Even on the top of the frames, what's in
Scratch
your
the top of the top.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's just some bees wax people use in like and shit. Always wondered what it was. Is it easy to scrape off, eh?
Yeah. Chuck them on.
What's the name of that property?
For what?
What's the name of that?
Propolis.
Aye?
Propolis.
Propolis.
Properly.
That's a big bee.
So if you look at this box, I can see from here already that some frames are full, it's partially full. We can still take this off, but just, yeah, if you whack out a frame, we'll have a look at it.
Because you're just seeing no holes in.
Yeah, yeah, and I can see on those end frames that they haven't really, they haven't actually filled that box up.
Especially that upper. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's still quite a bit of honey, you can take that. But see, majority of it's capped, so you're not really going to have moisture problems with that. Just put that there if you want, and then you can look through the other frames.
But do you look through most of the frames?
Oh, you just get a general kind of thing. If you're taking it to a commercial plant, they actually, before they spin the honey, they put the boxes in what's called a hot room. And that hot room will take moisture out of the honey as well. But you
Have you already done it today?
So that's a good frame right there.
I wonder how much other people have done that.
Soaked, eh? I've done it.
That one looks nice.
Good work, girls. Good work.
Slide them across.
What are these? Are these
Oh, it's just where they've built wax on the inside of the box. So when you pull it out, it just
Are you
separates.
checking them all? No.
Large one over this back one. Nice.
Empty.
Yeah, not much on that one.
so here? What
So with, oh sorry, with with this one here,
We'll leave it in there.
oh, it's all good. We'll take this box of honey still. But see, to me, what's happened here is obviously the students paint. You get these plastic frames, right? You buy them, they either come waxed or unwaxed. We buy them unwaxed and we paint wax on them. I'd say what's happened here is because the bees have only built foundation here, whoever waxed this frame didn't wax it properly, and the bees don't like drawing straight off the plastic. They want a bit of, yeah, probably, yep.
This one here.
Yeah, yep. So they just haven't been painted properly.
Get any paint?
Oh, yeah.
We'll wax frames next week.
This is just
Oh, where's that from? Kaitaia?
Yeah.
Come and use like this stuff here to paint it.
Yeah, could do. You can.
trying to get it out there. Can't.
Yeah, you can do that, but it's easier to melt the wax down and put it on with the paintbrush.
Yeah.
This we know. These have to be waxed.
Yep, they have to be waxed, and we'll do that.
Oh, we know not what not to do.
So somebody obviously.
Someone did a
Oh,
hard job. Yep.
That one's quite a bit on that one.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
Yeah.
Mean.
I think they would have been.
Even though it's not a full box, it's mainly what they have done is they've kept it all, so put it back together and we'll put an escape on it. So we'll still take that box of honey. There's probably still a good 16, 17 kilos in there.
Escapes have you got?
Just 2, but tomorrow we'll take some more honey off, but we'll just use the shake method. Okay?
How to shake the honey out.
Oh, just shake the bees off and put it into a fresh box, you know?
So all you're doing is shaking them.
Use your thing to break the seal. He did last time. Yep.
That seemed to be,
Pry it
I'll
apart.
just clean that other,
So this method here is just a lot cleaner. For the
yeah,
bees.
it's cleaner. And if you're doing heaps
Oh,
of
you're
hives at
lifting the whole
once,
box.
if you're shaking the bees off,
Separate
you know,
them.
you're racking them up and they'll start
They're
rubbing
going
their honey. This is like the easiest, calmest way on the bees to use your escapes.
This is the method I would use.
You should leave her apart now.
Pop it as a lever on it.
They want to
Stuck,
got a gap under it, because it's just a straight gap on that one. That one's got 3 doors. What are they closing? Oh, so they cut that.
Taste that honey, mate. Fucking sweet as. You taste that honey. Sweet as.
Is there a third hive tool anywhere?
What is it? Oh, yeah, it's under the lid.
Oh, sweet.
Bit of smoke.
Oh, so that there, guys, is obviously that would have been a double brood. Okay, so the queen had come into the top, and she would have laid drones. Late in the season, I would have put the queen excluder on, and the drones can't get back down through that queen excluder, so they end up dying in your honey box. So when you pop that off, just give those a shake off.
Where they're just dead drones.
Yeah, they're just dead drones. Yeah.
Oh, look, a bit of the box broke.
Yeah, oh, that was last week.
Takes a bit of pressure.
You taste that.
It's sweet. Propolis, eh?
Yeah.
I want to take them.
It's a nice honey there.
No.
School fella.
What's your name again?
Take it off. Take it off.
Any bees on the bottom?
Gonna have to block this hole, eh?
Look at all the honey on it.
Takou honey.
Oh yeah.
What's some
Oh, look at something stripping.
blocking with the
Yeah,
legs?
it's all the nectar because they haven't been converted yet.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you just squashed it.
So you're putting that feeder box on, eh? Yeah.
Look at all
Other
that
one
honey.
behind us.
Yeah.
How's this one stuck?
Hey up for the queen leaves.
Hey, sorry. How come there's honey stuck on the top?
That's just, yeah, they'll just do that on some hives. They'll just put honey throughout the thing, but basically they've just, in between the queen excluder, they've built little bits of comb
So
and
all you
filled
do
it
is
with
put
honey.
the excluder on top of all that.
Yeah, or you can just scrape that off. If you scrape that off onto the ground, they'll just clean it back up.
True.
Yep. Before you scrape that, if you don't want to kill too many bees, just give them a smoke, and they'll just kind of
I don't want to kill too many.
Kill them all.
yeah, just like see how they're going back down. Give it another smoke, and then you can scrape it.
These ones are waiting on to get out of the way.
Pretty
Yeah,
much
go ahead.
just a bit buzzed out because they're like, fuck. There's all these white things. You got to remember that normally there's not 12 beekeepers at one site, so they're like real disorientated right now because we're standing where they come into their hives and they're going, oh, what are these big white things? Yeah.
Be the king bee. I'm sure that's all my ancestors said when they saw the birds. After a couple of weeks, I should have done it.
Who said that?
You're not attacking them,
No, they're calm as. If they were angry, you'd be getting boom, 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 boom on your hands. Sweet.
I suppose once you've done it a few times, say Troy, you soon get
Yeah.
hang of it.
Yeah, for
It doesn't
sure.
matter what you keep it in eye.
Just squash the queen.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they sit and think,
Yep.
you need a bit of cajon.
Keep killing the queen.
Hey, yeah. Come on there. Get off.
So the excluder goes back on next?
Yeah, they're just going to check that brood, make
yeah.
sure everything looks all good downstairs.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
With pulling those frames out, bro, start like the second one in. It's just normally the queen's in the middle, and if you pull those, sometimes you can squash her. So you're best to start on the outside, give yourself a bit of room, and then once you've got that one out, then you can start moving your way along.
Hey, you had the chance to get close, motherfucker.
Why didn't you better wax that splitter?
Yeah,
I'll bring
get
out
most
the
of those
plane,
bees off.
Get as many off as you can.
Oh, done right in there?
Did you have a look for the queen before you shook it?
Yeah, she wasn't home.
Chuck it up here, and then you've got room for these other ones. I'll have a look at it. Everything looks pretty sweet. See how these here haven't, like, they might be a bit late hatching. You can just scratch that back and check. See, it's just not quite hatched yet. Oh, sorry. But if I'm scratching that back and I'm seeing what looks like coffee coloured brown, then I'd be a bit concerned. They're all
Coffee
fine.
coloured brown.
Yeah, like coffee colour.
Because these are what is the thicker ones?
See that one there now, bro? Now that you've made that room, that can just come to there.
They're not care, like.
Not too much. You don't want to mix them up too much, but it doesn't matter if they're one frame kind of out. As long as your brood's to the centre, you're sweet. See. Now that you've created that room, when you're pulling that frame up, you're not rolling the bees between each other. So that's perfect. What you've done there. That's awesome.
Yeah, I thought the dead ones before.
Yeah, they're wicked.
So when they hit
Good
them
larvae,
like that,
though.
is that when they're exchanging the
They're either putting nectar in there or they're actually having a feed for themselves.
And this thicker larvae is
This here is just honey. They always put honey around the brood anyway.
just so they can eat.
Yeah, so they'll just eat a bit of this and they'll feed the brood before the larvae before they cap it.
This really sketching his ass. Talk to you, buddy.
But they're still building, you know what I mean?
So what about this one here? Is that just
Oh yeah, that's just old, but yeah, good. That's just full with wax. You'll see it's not always real uniform, but yeah, that's good observation.
Where do you buy these things from?
Frames just online from Microtech. Yeah, they're just called plastic full depth frame. Yeah.
Well, they're worth.
Bro, they're quite expensive
Are
now.
they?
Yeah, but they're cheaper if you do the waxing yourself.
Yeah.
I'll take the wax.
Yeah, paint them on, you save cost with that.
What kind of wax would you use?
Just beeswax, you buy the beeswax separate. Yep.
Haven't come across the queen yet?
No,
Eh?
I've seen them fall out before and you go stood
Is that her?
So these are like white bits, that's not. Yeah, no, that's just honey. So always around the brood, the bees will store honey as well. So that's just honey, because when they're feeding that larva, they'll come and chew a bit of this, and then that stuff there is just pollen. Yeah. We'll have
Do we
to
need
change
putty?
these
What about put
boxes
some wax
out.
in it?
Yeah, you can block it up with wax.
Yeah.
That's onto it, Guzzy.
But you'll still find, because that's down in the brood box there, the bees will still guard that little hole to stop them coming in. As long as there's no holes in our honey box.
Yeah.
I'll just grab this.
After the
What's that called again?
That's just the top feeder.
I know that. It'll just put a camera. Top feeder.
Make sure it's square.
Well,
Skateboard.
put those,
It'll squash
put
down
those-
once that heavy honey box goes on it.
what about those plastic things?
Oh,
on there?
that I take those off
Oh, you
so
take
that the bees can get down.
Oh, yeah.
But normally they're on so
You
that
can
the
take
bee.
them out,
Yeah,
really.
you can pop them in and out. Yeah. Sweet.
I mean, do you take them out now or not? Do
Oh, you could do, but they're not good.
they? Doesn't matter.
Oh, you already starting to look like a beekeeper.
Yeah.
Alright.
Sweet. And those holes were facing up the right way. I didn't check.
Yeah.
Yep. Sweet. Pretty sure.
Everybody was watching, don't worry. Everybody was watching Troy. He would have known if it wasn't.
Oh, probably squashed.
They bloody good flowers, eh? Good, eh?
Oh, good for pollen, not for nectar, but good for pollen. These M-locks, they take a little bit of getting used to. Yep, sweet. Or you can even, might be able to go one over. Tighter. Sweet, double check. As long as there's no entry points above the skateboard in the honey box, you're sweet. Just cleaned up. Okay, before we go, so we got two boxes of honey there. We'll probably spin 3 or 4 on Wednesday. But when I come back tomorrow, I'll bring some empty boxes and we'll just use the shake method. So we'll check. I'll just check these quickly and see which ones we're going to take honey off. That one doesn't look too good. Have a look in that one, see how full that is. What's this, a candle?
Yeah.
See, that's full. So,
That's a good one.
yep. We'll put the lid back on. And mark that and take that one tomorrow.
Huh? Need to get a calendar. Mark the days and do it. What time of the month the flowering. Where's the doing?
Sweet. So have a quick check on that one. So obviously we'll spin this honey off before we can eat it. We got to send away our heaps of dead bees under that. Here we go.
It looked like it looked like a roach.
Where?
Top.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, it is.
Alright.
How come they didn't waste the roach?
I don't know. You'll get ants and stuff like that living under there. Spiders, obviously, especially in winter because it's dry, eh?
I thought that
You got to slide it along the edges.
They'd
right?
attack it if it went
Yeah.
near the hive, but it's, I mean,
it can't be that much of a threat.
Oh, damn right, isn't it? It's like a dead beetle.
so you can even pop
no,
one
sorry.
of those, pop one of those frames out and have a look. But that's another heavy box. So when we spin this honey off, before you can actually eat the honey or sell it or trade it or whatever, we have to send a test and make sure it's got no tutin in it. Everyone know the tutu plant? Yeah? The native? It's toxic, so you can get a toxic in your honey that'll make you really sick. Yeah, that's a good box.
We've been eating it for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I know. The chances are pretty low, but it is something that has to be tested.
Okay. Yeah,
And I'll talk more about that on Wednesday.
okay.
Yeah. All up through Manamuka Gorge. It's mainly on river flats and stuff like that. The bees don't actually they get honeydew, so there's a passion vine hopper that chews the tutu leaves, and then it excretes honeydew, and then the bees go out and get it and bring it back to the hive, and it makes your honey toxic, like it nearly killed a few people in Coromandel a few years ago. Yep. So you got to test your honey before you start eating it or sell it or trade it.
Seen that Himalayan one, bro?
Oh, the hallucinate. Yeah, bro.
Let's look at these.
Yeah.
They make that bloody taking him on the tour, ends up getting rocked, bro, and they have to carry him in.
And those hives are way up
Yeah.
on the cliff.
Yeah, different type of honeybee.
Yeah, those are massive, eh?
They climb
Hasn't
way
the
up
tutu
on
got
these
that
cliffs.
beaky flower in it?
Pardon?
The tutu got that beaky flower. Got the big red or orange flower.
Yeah, I'm not.
The tutu.
Yeah, I'll bring in a plant. I'll
Yeah.
snip a thing
I
so
think
that
it
we
got the
can see
beaky
it.
flower. I don't
Yeah.
think we haven't got any around
Yeah,
here.
there's not. Yeah. But I mean, these hives came from Kaitoa, and there's a good chance that there might be a bit around there. In 7 years of taking honey off, I've always got a test back, and it might have a minute bit of tutin poison in there, but not above the level that is harmful to us. So I've never had honey that they've gone. That's
You wonder
not
how the bees
acceptable.
are handling it.
Pardon?
No wonder the bees don't show sign of being sick themselves.
Yep, the bees don't get poisoned by it.
Yeah.
Does anyone know what trees are toxic to bees, even though they go and take the nectar off? No. Kawhai will make the bees sick.
Oh, true.
So when kawhai flowers, the bees will come back to the hive and they'll be all like pretty much drunk, and they'll clump out. The other one that's toxic to the bees and real toxic that I've seen heaps of hives poisoned from is koraka.
That's true.
Yeah. But
Karaka.
Karaka.
Yeah.
Not
That's a
koraka,
karaka. That's the most toxic out for everything, though.
Yep.
That
So
one.
when the karaka's flowering, it gives off heaps of nectar, and it smokes your bees over. You come back to your hives and you think they're doing well. There's bees just clumped up out the front. The bees are all like shitting in the hive. It makes them real sick.
You know, that's the most toxic poison in all the bloody
Yep.
plants.
So
Karaka.
when dogs and that eat the berries too, it knocks them over. But then at a certain point, didn't Māoris used to eat the berries?
you got to put them in fresh water, on the running water.
Yep.
On the running water.
Yeah.
And healthy intact for 2 weeks.
Same as tutu. It's used in Māori medicine. But obviously you need to know
You gotta
when
know
to
what you're
pick
doing.
it and what you're doing, otherwise you're going to kill yourself. So yeah, karaka and kawhai. I've seen the karaka poisoning
Even
in the
the kawhai?
bees. The kawhai.
The kawhai killing them or just making them drunk?
Nah, kills the bees. It's
Is that
toxic
right?
to them.
But
But
heaps of those.
what I say is I've seen the karaka poisoning. Obviously, I think it's because where I've put hives, there's been native bush that's got heaps of big karaka trees. But up here, you don't really see an acre of kawhai, right?
No.
You don't see heaps of it,
So
so
if
it's
you-
obviously really minute.
Yeah.
But
So-
if you had heaps of kawhai
Yeah,
trees,
forget
then the effects would be really strong on the hive.
You wouldn't even worry about putting it there.
The karaka, obviously if you've got places where you're taking hives that's got karaka, you want to kind of take them there once it's finished flowering, but a lot of the time it actually flowers at the same time as your manuka flow. And you can take a full box of bees like that in, ready for your manuka, go back a week later, and it's just, a small amount of bees. It's just killed off heaps of bees in the hive, which you don't
It's
want.
like a walnut.
Cool. That's that for now. Tomorrow we'll come and whack those boxes off. We'll shake out, was this one, eh? No, it was that one and this one. So those two there we'll remember straight across from there. I'll just quickly show before we go how this, just pop into this one.
So commercial guys would to take that honey box off and put a new one on.
Yeah.
Is everything ready to go, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Not this time of the year, but in the spring they'd put a fresh honey box on.
Yeah.
But the chances of the bees making a box of honey now is pretty, unless, I mean, the thing that's really bringing in the honey now is the towai.
Oh yeah.
So if you had a stand, if your hives were backed on to heaps of towai, they might make a box now through to the end of April, but here they're just going to be bringing in drips and jabs. If someone grabs that internal feeder, I'll just show how those work. So,
For the winter feed.
yeah, for the winter feed, this has probably got enough honey. It doesn't need feeding straight away because it's got quite a bit of honey downstairs. But basically, you just take a couple of frames out. That just sits in there. You put your bracken fern in there. Come along every 5-6 weeks. Fill that up with sugar syrup, and that'll keep them through.
Using raw sugar. Raw sugar would be better.
Yeah, it's just raw sugar and water. 2 parts sugar, 1 part water.
Oh yeah.
And do you boil it? Or?
That's a lot of sugar.
Yeah, to dissolve it. But I don't make it. You can buy it straight from farmlands. You rock in there. They've got it in a big 20-foot container in a bladder. They got a pump. You either fill up, like you'll see beekeepers have got 300, 400 litre things on the back of their trucks.
Yeah.
I just fill up 20 litre containers and I just feed that way because it's quicker. Otherwise you've got to have a pump and stuff on your truck. These hives here, we'll give a feed. The ones that we take honey off next week, we'll give them a feed of sugar syrup because it's something we've got to do. If you're onto it, and depending on how you want to run your hives, you could take half of the honey out of those boxes, put some empty frames in there, take half the honey from the hive, leave half on, and you won't even have to feed that hive over winter, okay?
Ah, true.
So depending on how much honey you take off it, yeah, it's all up to the
Better
beekeeper
idea, I
really.
think. Better
A lot of
idea.
people now, because the bush honey's not worth a lot of money, they're actually
Leaving the honey.
they're leaving the honey on because it makes more sense to leave the honey on, and the honey's far better for the hive too than bloody sugar and water.
Yeah.
So it is good to leave a bit of honey on your hive. I'll take that out for now until we need it. And I'll just quickly check that hive there.
Like this one here.
Yep, pop that open.
But the seasons are changing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you'll know when the season change.
Yep.
Like for example, you know.
It's different every year up here though, eh? Like even in the last couple of years.
It was hot air.
And,
Yeah.
and they're going to keep on changing.
You got to remember too that you can have real nice weather like now, but everything's finished flowering.
You're looking healthy.
Yeah, building up. I just want to have a quick look at this one.
You can look there and put the board down this end.
Do they all work the same hives, these bees, or do they all have their own individual hives?
All individual, yep.
So
the
these
queen
bees
cell
are next
getting
to your
made.
hive?
That's their hive, yep.
Oh, yeah, is that a queen cell?
Yeah, it is, yep.
Where?
So if you look here, I can see the queen here. It's only a small queen. That's your queen there. She's quite small. Now this hive, I think I had to do a thing at the Dargaville Field Days.
Oh, I can see her. Yeah.
You can see her there.
Yeah.
Yep. And I went to Kaitaia and I took that. We've got what's called an observation hive for like workshop days, and it's a glass thing where you can see the things. Now I took the queen out of this hive. I'm pretty sure it's this one. And what they've done is they've gone and made a new queen, and you can see the cell there that she's hatched out of. See it there?
So does that
After
mean she's
themselves.
been hammered by drones already, or no?
Yep, because you can see here that she's laying.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what a queen cell looks like there. Yep, that's a fresh one, but it's hatched. I'll see.
Out and about.
And they'll quite normally, they won't just do one, like if you take the queen out of a hive and they make new queen cells, they'll make a couple, and when those hatch, those queens will kind of fight to the death, and the strongest one will survive. Yeah,
They're looking good, bro.
yeah, so she's laying from what I can see.
Looking awesome.
So one's already one.
Yep, and she's already laying, you can see by the brood in there. Now she hasn't really done much on those frames there. This is a hive that'll definitely need feeding because there's not a hell of a lot of honey in it, eh?
Yeah.
But, yeah, all good. So with this one next week,
So would it be better just to take out another rack out of another hive?
yeah, and you
Use
can do
honey
that
to feed it.
if you don't want to feed them sugar. What you can do is I can go over to one of those honey boxes. I can steal 2 frames of honey off it, and I can put it in here. Okay, so you can interchange stuff between hives. If you've got a weak hive and a really strong hive, you can take brood out of that hive, and you can put it in here to pump it up. Okay. The other thing that you can do that a lot of beekeepers do. Okay, say I've got a really strong hive here and it's pumping. This one's a little bit weak and I want to catch it up. All as I do is I put this hive here.
Straight on top.
Nah, I swap places.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so this one's really going good. I put it there and I put this one here. All the field bees will come back to the weak hive because it's now in this location, okay?
Just like that.
Yeah,
Just
and
change
it'll
the
pump it
position.
up. Yep.
Oh.
And they'll interchange. Each bee's in its own hive, but we do get something that's called drifting between hives, right? So sometimes when the bees are coming back to this hive, the odd one might float into there. Those bees will accept it because it's actually bringing food back to the hive. But when we were talking last week about fanning and scenting, you do have bees, these bees out here that are releasing a bit of a pheromone to tell those bees this is your hive. But
Come
most
in.
of it's done by location. All good?
All good.
Okay, sweet, that's us. We'll take that honey off tomorrow and we'll go through these and we'll put some varroa strips in them as well.